So, hey, how's it going, SGND? We're here doing a quick recap before the episode. So this was a pretty good one we call something hoodie based on the color that I was wearing at the time. It's black hoodie episode.
Yeah.
So thank you, subscriber, for checking in. Emily, what do we got?
So we started out with the CIA's Stargate project, and so that was a really interesting one for me because I didn't understand a lot of that, like the declassified documents that were coming out.
Yeah, the remote viewing program.
Yeah.
So for those of you who didn't check it out, you're going to want to check it out, and it gets good in this episode, but you can find it online, even use the AI to search it, but I would definitely look into that. It's some pretty interesting documents came out from programs that were running from the 60s all the way to the 90s and beyond, or potentially even earlier, I guess.
Talk about dreams and astral projection, specifically is that how you say it?
Astral projection?
Astral projection?
I think
that sounded so weird.
If not, leave a comment below. Tell us how we're saying it wrong. So we get into kind of like a little bit of my experience and stuff and some anecdotal or some stories and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then we go into social media influencers and just how people are starting to question a lot more of what they're seeing on social media. Even though I think we're actually going to a point where people are not going to really watch the news anymore and they're going to watch social medias.
Well, I've already seen that a lot of news in particular and your national news has gone down. And I've had so many conversations with people that I didn't know were of the similar mindset that I have about that information. And I've heard over and over again, people just talking about the messaging that's on there and that someone effectively paid for it. And that's why you're hearing it. So it seems to be accurate.
Okay, and then this one I'm going to need help with because we were talking to ChatGPT and it was like the comb jellies discovery. Do you remember that?
Yeah, just like it's an interesting topic, but yeah, you're going to want to check that out. It's just a little bit about how we're learning about what's going on in the world and basically a whole nother existence or phase of life that we didn't know existed. So it's pretty wild.
Kind of wrap it up with the Zorro circle and how...
Oh yeah, the happiness advantage. I brought it, yeah. It took me forever to get through this, but I gave a presentation on this recently, and I love this book and the information. Everyone that I've got to read it so far has had the same response, and it takes you a while though. If you just blow through it, you're not doing yourself any favors with it. You have to like take notes and try to write some stuff down and use it more as a tool. So like most of the books, when I finish them, I throw them right up on the shelf, and this one I keep in my bag because I want to use it as a reference to try and use some of the activities or as a reference to go back to, right, and review again. Anyway, that's this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. You really like this episode. I go on a tangent and Emily laughs at me. So it's pretty much our usual stuff. Thanks for tuning in, Millennial Spectrum. Take care, subscriber. Welcome to Millennial Spectrum. Wow. 1 subscriber. We love you. No, I did have an interesting conversation with AI this week because I was talking to it about remote viewing. Because did you see those CIA documents that were released? The CIA documents about the remote viewing program that was terminated in like 1995?
I did not see that.
Oh,
that was not pushed to my...
Jeez. God, your timeline must be so boring. My timeline's like blowing my mind every other day. Well, I use this then to talk to ChatGPT about strategies to try and effectively do remote viewing and talk to a little bit about like my vivid dreams and the things that I have going on, and how I've used binaural beats and stuff in the past. I find that to be very helpful to put you in that mind state. So I've shared this before on other stuff, but basically this all started for me with, I was flying in an airplane.
Okay.
And I was listening to the hum of the jets. And I just said to myself, man, this would be like a good time to meditate. I've never really meditated. I wasn't really big on it. This was every bit of like 12 years ago or more. And so I said, all right, well, it can't be that hard. I know you're supposed to sit in a relaxed position and kind of put your fingers together. So I put my fingers together. I think I did this or something like that.
Oh, so there's like you had heard that prior?
Yeah. Yeah. So I had some intent going into this. I knew that there's supposedly that circulation line, energy line, that's why you do that, is to recycle that energy or something I'd read. And so I was going through that and I was sitting there. I just started breathing real easy. And I think I was like counting my breath. And then I said, okay, and I'm supposed to like concentrate on my third eye, like your third eye, and try and look at it, like physically look at it. So I was sitting there doing that. And all of a sudden my eyes like started to flutter a minute or two into it. And then I was just getting caught into the hum of the jets, that little like,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden I was like, boom, within a couple of minutes, I was into this nice breathing and I just had a clear mind. I didn't have a bunch of thoughts jumping in, which I normally do. And all of a sudden I was in my childhood bedroom. And I was like sitting
Wow.
on the bed and it was as if I was literally there, like completely vivid, as if I was experiencing it. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, oh my gosh, this is crazy that you could do this. I didn't even know this was possible. And so the first thought I had was I wonder if the only reason I could do it is because I'm so high up in an airplane. Like I started thinking about like all the waves, right? Bluetooth waves, cellular waves, phone waves, radio waves. I'm like, I said to myself, I wonder if that stuff's blocking me from doing this all the time.
Okay.
So I'm having this thought as I'm seeing my bedroom that I was in as a kid. And then probably about 45 seconds, a minute into it, all of a sudden the bedroom door opened up and just like an inky black cloud came out of the bedroom door while I was sitting on the bed. And the bedroom door opens up and this inky black cloud, almost like when you pour ink into water and it makes that kind of translucent floating look. And then it turned into basically like a praying mantis, but like an inky black looking praying mantis. And it slashed at me in my bed. So it went from opening up, kind of leaking out, and then once it invaded in the room, it just went right after me, like in a horror film. And I did one of those like like shook awake. And so after that, I was like, okay, so it is possible. When people talk to me about these things like dream visions and all this kind of that, I used to think before it was people just making up for attention to a degree because I wasn't capable of it. But once that happened to me, I kind of became subtly obsessed, like with this notion idea that there's clearly a way to tap into this other stream of consciousness.
You know what's crazy about that too is like you were full of like a full plane.
Yeah.
And like having this very individual experience.
Yeah. And it was so quiet on the plane because it was an early morning flight. And I was just listening to the hum of the motors. Because it was still at the point, it was like an earlier flight where they keep the lights low. And so I just heard the hum of the motors the whole time. And I used that as like my trigger.
Are you still actively trying to have these experiences?
I will on time to time. There was a period where I was spending a lot of time invested in it. And at night in particular, listening to binaural beats. And I had some pretty crazy, or not crazy, I had some pretty things that made me feel I was making some significant progress. It happened to me. But it was also tiring because I wasn't getting proper sleep. And so then I was exhausted. And so it was like the harder I was trying to do it, the more it was taking me out of being able to do it.
Because maybe you were trying too hard to have the experience.
I think so. And like I would get to this point during this one meditation, Paul Zantisi, he's on YouTube, and I would use his astral projection deal. And I would get to a point every time where, most every time I should say, where my heart would start to race. So I'd be laying in bed trying to do this meditation, and he guides you to try and like rock your astrophysical body out of your physical body. And it almost describes it almost as like waves on an ocean, right? To where you're getting rocked back and forth and you like rock your body, but not physically. You're thinking like you're rocking your body. And you do start, and I did, at least I feel like I started to feel separation between my physical body and this astral body. And then it would start to like all of a sudden my body would feel like dead weight on the bed.
Wow.
It would feel very heavy. And I would get to the point to where I started feeling like I was separating, and then like a panic attack would kick in and my heart rate would go nuts. Like as if I was running on a treadmill at full speed, and then get sucked back into it and open my eyes immediately. So we set all that foundation for this is the CIA Stargate program, which was just released recently, the documentation of it. There's some wild things in there. I read one, it ended in 95. Supposedly I think it was as early as this particular document goes back to 82, but where the individual is talking with the observer and the subject is being cued on how to do astral viewing. They have this whole system that they put them through. They get them in this mental mind state. They give them cue cards that are put in an envelope. They give them coordinates and directions. And like, I think they also use some kind of stimulus because in there, the individual is talking about it, but the observer makes a footnote about applying more stimulus or something like that. He was given coordinates and asked to view this place 1 million years in the past, and it was Mars. And so he was reporting that there was a pyramidal shape there, and it was heavy, like windstorm, kind of like an environmental disaster had occurred on the planet. And the observer kept asking him to move in further and further, coaxing him to get to the pyramid and to try and make contact with someone in there. And he did find someone who was living in the pyramidal structure. And according to this is just reading the notes of them going back and forth and having this discussion while this person's supposedly in this trance-like state. And the person said that it was a Mars planet, and they had an ecological disaster. And they had a group that had left the planet to find salvation, like a habitable planet, while the rest just basically stayed and survived in the pyramids. And the pyramids were specifically designed to withstand the environmental disaster. That's why the structure of the pyramid was critical, and it was like a shelter for them.
The pyramids are really unexplainable if you think about it.
I mean, there's just so much we clearly have lost with human history.
Exactly.
And then the thing I found the most interesting about this is I remember hearing stuff about remote viewing projects for probably 20 years or more.
Really?
Yeah. I've seen this on internet threads and conspiracy channels. And it was always talked about like the men who stare at goats. And well, they also talked about, I think it was even in Stranger Things, right? They cued that. There's been movies about this. There's a movie about that where they use remote viewing to try and track those serial unalivers. And then there's discussions that they were using remote viewing during the Cold War to try and find the location of missile silos and secrets. And both Russia and US reportedly were doing that. And that was back during the Cold War. So
it was years ago.
That's what I'm saying. And this is documented stuff from 1988 where they were doing it. They were spending millions of dollars running this project. Either it's a total waste of government money and you got one person who's just saying that this stuff works, someone who's running the department, making $500,000 a year, getting people in there and playing games, or this maybe did have some success because they were spending money and it did last. I mean, at least from, I think, 82 to 95 for this particular project. But there's a whole series of projects in different names that have existed that have incorporated parts of this.
I think we're about to learn a lot of declassified information here soon.
It'd be interesting, for sure.
This stuff gets released, but the mass audience, I don't think, sees this. Or they just don't talk about it.
Well, are you aware of the UFO disclosures that were going on in front of the Senate just last week? It was like Tuesday at 11:30 it started.
I knew it was like going on, but I think it's because you literally showed it to me. Like it's not just because I found it by myself.
It was being live broadcast, and they literally had people who had high level classification that were standing in front of it. Was either Congress or the Senate and being questioned and saying, "Yeah, we have biologics. Yeah, we know that there are UAPs that we've collected samples from, we've collected pieces of, and there's ones that we don't understand at all how they work or haven't been able to interact with." And then they also confessed that there's ones that go down in the ocean, and the guy was alluding to the fact that there's likely an entire civilization down there of advanced beings.
They just announce that aliens are real. It's like, how do they not?
I mean, how many times have you seen, or at least I've seen memes over the last couple of years that I didn't have aliens are real on my bingo card. It keeps being announced over and over and over again.
Do people just not believe it, or?
I guess. I mean, how could you see the vastness of space and assume that there's no other biological life capable of?
I don't know. Right? That just blows my mind that people just do not.
And I don't know if it's the crowd that wants there to be a supreme creator that's suppressing that, or the crowd that wants there not to be a supreme creator. Because I mean, you make a case either way for that. If there's more biologics and more planet, it actually fits with a lot of that story. That you're on a seeded planet. That's what those stories kind of break down. If you read those stories without the glasses of control of a religion and you just read those stories, you're like, holy crap, they seeded this planet with people.
And when you think about it like that and just how big our universe is, there's so much stuff we don't know or why things are the way that they are.
And the thing that's hardest for me is, let's say you don't believe in it. Let's say you think it's ridiculous. Then why is it wrong for other people to pursue and to investigate and to learn more? Why be so closed off to it? And why attack people for presenting it? It's like, then let them do that.
I have always wondered that, where if it does not impact you, why do you care so much if other people are doing it?
Right.
I don't get that, but we are in such a state right now where people are like, if you're not with me or against me. And it's just like, I don't know how we got so far.
Well, that goes back to what we were talking before about the tribalism, this extreme tribalism. It's like we've done it all throughout our lifetimes. It's just taken different forms. We make these religious cults and we want to be in them. And right now, in my opinion, we have religious cults that aren't based out of a church or a steeple or a mosque. We have those things as well. And I use cults in a loose way. I don't use cults as in a negative way. I guess I don't want to say that. I guess an ideology or a belief system would probably be best. It's good to have a belief system. It seems to ground people, but we have a natural drive to do that. And when we have an absence of that, we create it. Right? We create it, like you see it happen with people who join clubs, people who join biker gangs or gangs. Like that's what they're doing. They're joining their clique, their group, just as like the other person goes and joins and goes to a Catholic church or whatever.
That's their tribe.
Yeah, that's their tribe.
I think that's like the beginning of time. It's been like that.
Yeah, there's obviously some need to survive, right? That survival instinct. Like you're either in the tribe and well fed and protected, or you're outside of the tribe and that's worse. Like some people treat it as being like you saw the pressure that amounted from the most recent years of how important it was to be in the tribe, that people did things that were absolutely absurd that they, in my opinion, they knew were highly ineffective or didn't make sense. And they did them just to stay in the tribe.
That's why I'm wondering if people aren't coping as well to events that are happening. I just don't know if they know how to.
Right. You seek for answers, search for answers.
Yeah.
And if you don't have your tribe there to back it up,
then I think you just don't really know how to do that. I don't know.
So it was interesting. So check it out. The if you're bored or if you want to be like me, the CIA Stargate project, the document files were released on that, and it's a pretty wild trip. There's some interesting things to read in there, and you can even just get a summation. But I suggest going right to their website, and you can see the files. They're there. I even used ChatGPT to give me the direct link, and I read just a couple of the files, particularly the big back and forth with this Mars project. So there's a lot more stuff in there, though.
I asked ChatGPT when I was doing this kind of just like different trends to talk about. It seems like a lot of it is like the quiet luxury trend, digital detox, the rise of like micro adventures. So micro adventures have always been kind of my thing. Yeah. Like, so I set all this up last night, and then I like got in my car, and I was just like, it's been like a while since I've just like
gone on a drive. Nice.
So I just like got on I-15 and just kept going, and then like I drove all the way to like Logan area, and I was just like, I need to turn around now. I think that's just like such my jam because you don't have to do crazy big things. I did stop in this random town. It's called like Far West or something. Like that's like a town name, and I'd never heard of it before. Wow. But it is kind of like sketchy to do that too much because the other day I was trying to fill up gas and my gas tank would not open.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, what?
What do you do?
What do you do?
Maybe hitch a ride. And then we'll be talking about you on the Serial Unalive podcast.
Have you ever done that?
Hitched a ride?
Yeah.
No, what are you, crazy?
I just like I don't know if
I don't think so. I can't remember a time where I've ever had to. I know my buddy, this is a good story. So one of the guys I worked with back in Chicago, he dated this one woman of a particular group of individual women who could be a little bit out there. And in my opinion, so she got him and picked him up and said, hey, we're going to go on a surprise trip. I want to take you on a surprise trip.
I don't know if I would do that.
So they did. And then about halfway through, she started bringing up some stuff that was going on in their relationship. And so the car ride slowly started turning worse and worse and worse. And then she asked him the question about whatever it was that she was mad about. And this wasn't like he was cheating or something like that. It was like some kind of disagreement thing.
Just something he did that bothered her, probably.
Yeah. So
why are you bringing this up?
It was definitely something you'd argue about, but not something that would...
Don't bring that up in a car trip.
Well, so she drove him 2.5 hours outside the city. They went on this like road trip that she was going to take him to. She had him get out of the car.
Nah.
Have him get out of the car.
No.
and then left him there.
No, that is psychotic. Like, honestly, like, I would not do that to somebody I hated.
Yeah, and she knows he didn't have like family members or people right in the area. I mean, he had friends, but it was like 2.5 hours out. So a 5-hour round trip to go pick him up.
What did he do? Did he call somebody?
Yeah, he got it worked out. He eventually got back because he told me the story the next morning at work, and he just started off, "You won't believe this. I just went, like he had just gotten into work because he spent all night trying to get back."
Oh my gosh, I'm really hoping that ended there.
No, he ended up still hanging out with her.
Are
for a
you
while.
serious?
Oh yeah, yeah. Guys are ridiculous with that stuff. We are guys. Come on.
That is a big red flag. If somebody's
You
willing
think?
to
Yeah.
leave you
There's a little bit. A little bit.
I can't picture. I don't even know what I would do. I really don't.
Hitch a ride back into town. That's where this comes from. Hitching a ride. So, word to the wise. If you don't like hitching a ride, don't get in an argument with your significant other on a long road trip.
I don't think I've ever put myself in a situation where I have felt in danger like that. Never. Okay, so there was this true crime story, I think when you were gone, in Utah, about this Tinder serial unaliver.
This Tinder serial unaliver. So there's a story about a Tinder serial unaliver. Go.
Okay. So this girl met this guy on Tinder in Utah, and I believe they went out on one date prior.
Okay.
And she was just like, he was normal and fine, whatever. They go on a second date, and he was just like, I want to take you on this hike. Honestly, if you really don't know somebody, don't do that.
What, a hike for a date? That's a scary thing now? That should be like a normal thing. You want to check out and see if that person's fit. They keep up with you. If you have common interest. It's
scary, though, because you're in the middle of nowhere.
In Utah? No, you're in the middle of the mountains. Like, you go hiking right up in the mountains. Now, if they drove you down to somewhere remote and said, hey, let's go for this hike.
Well, so they had like a picnic first, and then that was fine. And like they're going on this hike, or okay, they were going to go on a hike, but I think he put something in the food.
Oh, wow.
And she woke up to him like a knife, like almost unaliving her.
Wow.
That's how she woke up. And she was strong, and she like fought back, got out, called the authorities. He did this to 3 other people, and there was no real rhyme or reason. The police were like questioning him, and they said, would you do anything differently? And he said, I would have gotten a sharper knife.
Oh, wow. Like I called a shot right to the police, huh?
So they're saying there was 2 other women involved, and they are unidentified. They don't want to come forward. And
they survived as well?
He didn't actually.
This is just a thing that acted out?
On the verge. He just was never able to fulfill it, but he wants to be a serial unaliver.
Wow, this guy's got to hit the gym a little bit. No, it's terrible. We don't want to make him better. I understand. I'm just saying. 3-0 or 0-3.
Well,
right?
He's probably in prison forever now.
Oh, good.
Let's hope.
That's where he should be. That's what I mean to say.
Well, I'm just like, you can't trust anything anymore. It's so hard.
Yeah, my dad was just saying this today.
That you can't trust anything anymore?
Yeah.
I'm losing faith in everything.
Yeah. That's not good. But it isn't. We should have a lot of faith in people. Hopefully we'll make a resurgence. Maybe you got to hit rock bottom before you realize that you have a problem. And I think as a society, we're getting close to hitting rock bottom. I think WW3 is when we're going to hit rock bottom.
Do you think we're still going to go through that?
Yeah, I think you're going to... I really have a feeling that it's going to be pushed as if it's a done deal, like it's happening. And then at the precipice, we'll be saved. Because it's like, that's just how it works, right? Like you're at a train station and you see the kid playing around by the tracks and you're kind of watching and you're going, they're not watching their kid and this kid's moving all over the place. You're not going to go over there and be preemptively go to the parents like, hey, get your kid away from the tracks. Very rarely do people do that. They kind of mind their own business and do their own thing. But then you see the kid trip and the train's coming and you jump like a jaguar and grab the kid and save him. And then that's everyone talks about, like, oh, he saved it. The dude probably noticed 5 minutes ago that the kid was out of control or running around. And that's probably why he was aware of it. Whether it was consciously or even subconsciously. We take in so much information that people are generally aware of their space.
Yeah.
So I was like talking with Chat GPT, my buddy, Z, and I just asked, what are some interesting things going on around the world? I think this one's pretty crazy. Comb jellies merge into a single organism. In a remarkable discovery, researchers observed 2 comb jellies merging to form a single individual. This fusion resulted in a creature with 2 mouths and 2 sets of balancing organs, sharing digestive and nervous systems. The phenomenon, documented in current biology, sheds light on self-recognition mechanisms in the animal kingdom and may have implications for human health, particularly in organ transplant. They fuse together, like in Dragon Ball Z, where the 2 guys fuse together and become one. This thing fused together and kind of became a mutant thing, but still was one.
And they're saying that it can become an organ transplant.
Well, no, and they're not saying it can become an organ transplant. They're saying the fact that 2 separate organisms bonded and fused to become one separate organism then gives good indication for technology of understanding how to transplant organs in humans, right? Because that's always the big thing, is rejection in organ donation or organ transplants, is the person's body recognizing it as a foreign entity and then attacking it. So basically what they're alluding to is this maybe early discovery on how to cue the human body to identify, let's say you get a liver transplant, as your own tissue, even though it's biologically, genetically different. Because here's 2 things, but maybe they were also so similar that it was easy. Who knows?
There's got to be a better way to do organ transplant, or maybe like something that we can help grow or something. Because right now it's just like you have to wait for a donor.
Or you could be like the mega wealthy and just have a vat filled of a bunch of donor people. I mean, how does it? We clone a sheep. When did we clone the sheep?
Oh man, like what year?
We clone a sheep, and then we're like, no, we're good. We're just going to leave that alone. I'm like, BS on that. You don't think guys who are building rocket ships, designed like giant phallus, haven't invested money in making sure that they have a backup liver? I mean, you would almost be a moron not to. If you have $1 billion in assets, you wouldn't be like, you know what? I had a rough time in college in my 20s. It wouldn't be a bad idea for me to have a backup liver, or have heart disease is prevalent in my family. It'd be a good thing for me to have a copy sitting around.
That is so true. Why would we stop experimenting with that?
Because we did it. That's what I'm saying. We just moved it to places where there's less regulation. It's probably some remote island in South Africa. It's like there's 30, like a bunch of twins. Like I've seen that before too. Wasn't it Argentina? Because of this may be totally out there, or incorrect, but I thought it was Argentina that has like this super high population of twins. And they said I think there was a whole documentary done on this, was that wherever the location was, there was a location. For some reason, I thought it was Argentina because I thought it tied back into the Nazi regime, and they were doing genetic testing on twins. And what they were trying to do was cloning. And so there's like this area in Argentina where it has like the most twins of anywhere in the world. And like triplets too, like identical triplets.
Like that's not just a normal occurrence.
Boom. And boom goes the dynamite. So my question is this. If you have a country that has this huge amount of wealth, we have a huge amount of wealth here, but we seem to lose trillions of dollars all the time, right? And they're constantly auditing and coming up short on these audits and don't know where all this money's gone. You think it would be unwise for that country to invest in some kind of underground military structure? Like we built the highway. The highway system exists. Wasn't it Eisenhower that built the highway system for military purposes to transfer military assets from coast to coast?
Something like that.
So now the highways are congested with all these cars, which wasn't as big of a deal then. Now, would it not make sense to invest in tunneling? I mean, have you seen the tunneling equipment we have now? It is megalithic.
Yeah, why are we not using that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Why are you building it? You're building it to build a little thing under the bridge, or they announced like one project, and then what? The thing gets mothballed for 5 years and never used again? That's a waste.
I have heard there is a lot of underground tunneling potentially in California, like with the celebrities and stuff. Because
we know that. That was confirmed. You can look that up.
Oh, I didn't know we knew that.
The Playboy Mansion. The Playboy Mansion connected to a bunch of celebrity homes around there.
Yeah.
They found that after they took that over, and then they cemented it in.
Yes, the Playboy Mansion.
There's photographs of that. Before AI existed, you can go check the photographs. That was on the internet, unless it's been wiped by now.
I forgot about that. Yeah, so I think Hollywood has like a huge underground tunnel system.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of expense, but I could understand if you wanted to ferry guests in and out of a hotspot too.
Like, I know, like, the theme parks, like Disney.
Yeah. Disney has it. They have a whole underground city.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's for their employees, right?
Yeah, but the point being is that it has a use, and it's facilitated and built into the design.
But it's like, what was the Playboy house doing?
Oh. If we've learned anything, there's a lot of stuff going on. We had R. Kelly, we had Epstein, we had Jimmy Savile, we had, the Diddler now. I mean, those are the ones that people are aware of. Usually the names that just get thrown out aren't the only names involved.
All of that stuff, it seems like the Diddy stuff just kind of came out of nowhere and it's just like, bam. I don't understand.
Well, there's a certain prime minister that was just involved, or just discussed today, I saw being mentioned. And I remember years ago when that individual's plane was sequestered by the U.S. Marshals.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And all of a sudden I was watching that. I was like, this is wild. This has got to be made up. And I thought, oh man, I remember that like 5-6 years ago, whatever it was. He was brought down to the tarmac by like U.S. Marshals or something like that. And there was this whole thing. They said, oh, it was for security purposes, this, that, and the other.
There's just so much that goes on, and then it just gets forgotten because the next thing comes up, and then we just never talk about it again.
Yeah. Well, because the television's not telling us to talk about it.
It's true.
Television, right?
We are so easily, and not like we, but just like we as a society is so easily susceptible, I think.
Yeah.
We don't know what subliminal messages are going on.
I know. Well, I went and saw The Mentalist. I was on a little break and I saw a show of The Mentalist where he does these tricks in this parlor show. And really it was like 4 tricks is what he does, but it's an hour-long show. And again, it just made me think of like how easily we're deceived, and how either they were plants in the audience or the guy was putting the suggestions in the people's heads from the words that he was using. I mean, there was ones where you had people pick a word out of a 2,000-page or 1,000-page book, and he knew the word, and then he knew the word that they looked at before that and all this kind of deal. So they could have very well just been audience plants. I don't know. But
I do know magicians do that. I think they do plant it in your head with the words that they use.
Well, I thought about the other one where he did it on America's Got Talent, and he made everyone in the audience draw a star. And he started off with like a snake, and then an anchor, and then a delta symbol, and then some kind of way he made an R. So he put the idea of star in everyone in the audience's head through his his presentation, and then literally everyone drew a star because he was like, snap decision, first thing you think of, and it was like star.
That's so crazy. And on the media, they use specific words like weird, and stuff like that's just the first one.
The walls are closing in.
Yeah.
Right.
It was or testy. Testy was one.
Weird. I mean, they just hammer these words.
Where then I use it, and I was just like, when have I ever said testy in my life? Yeah. It's like, I don't use that word.
You had to dust that one off the shelves.
I mean, I guess it makes sense. When you spend enough time around even just individuals, you start to pick up their mannerisms. Mannerisms? There's so many different ways to say words.
I guess. Or there's a right way to pronounce things.
If you're from accents are hilarious to me.
Yeah.
How do they come about?
Just from the people who live in the area and say that stuff. Like I grew up in a town called, it should be phonetically pronounced Mentor. And we all say Menor.
You don't say your T's there either.
No, but only with that particular town. Other stuff, it's not like we have a draw on everything. It's just with the name of that town.
Okay, because Utah doesn't say our T's.
Yeah.
I mean, besides in our state.
Besides directly in the name that you said multiple times.
But like, we don't say mountain.
Mountain.
Fountain.
Mountain, fountain. Yeah.
Internet.
Yeah. Internet.
Does Ohio have accents at all? Like the Midwest?
Yeah, different areas. Southern Ohio, Middle Ohio, Northern Ohio.
Actors, though, I don't know how they do it. They can do like an American accent.
Yeah.
And they're like British.
Yeah. That is always wild. Like, what's a kid's name? Tom Holland. Yeah, there we go. Tom Hamilton. Tom Holland does that. When he switches from his American accent to his British accent, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, he can do a British accent.
Well, how do you switch back and forth? That's my question.
They're paid liars. and actors. Liars is what you can say an actor is, a paid liar. And so they're very good at it. That's why I always make sure to make all of my personal choices and endorsements based on that of an actor. Because there is no way they are morally compromised and are willing to say anything for money. Because they spend all day. No one wants to go home and do work at home, right? You leave your work at work. So they're not going to lie and act on stage for money for other purposes. They only do it at work. No one wants to go home and do their accounting after being in an accounting office all day.
Do you think you're influenced by any like influencers at all?
Yeah, for sure. I accept that. I'm big water. I'm a big water guy. I drink water, a lot of water, filtered water. And since I've gotten unfiltered water, I've noticed that the amount of stuff I eat and the amount of things I drink has gotten to be a smaller and smaller circle.
I've seen this one guy yesterday saying that we should all be drinking spring water. I can't. It's just so gross to me. It has a texture. I can't describe it, but it does.
Maybe because it has like a higher salt content. I do put salt in the water, like the fitness gurus, the spiritual, healthy fitness gurus really push salted water. And I do it every now and then, but I have a hard time with it.
Don't you drink salted coffee?
Yeah, I will. I'll do that too. Because that's small. Dude, I've gotten to the point where I never used to drink coffee, and now I drink coffee. And so now I drink like kind of the grossest coffee I can, because otherwise you're literally just drinking
Do you
a
drink
milkshake.
it black?
And then you get, when you're 40 years old, you start getting like fat on your abdomen that you're saying to yourself, like, how the hell is this happening? And then you realize it's from your coffee drinks and your sugar bombs. You're basically drinking a milkshake every morning.
Damn, you're not wrong.
Like, have you ever seen like some of those Dunkin' ones? That's wild. Actually, I got a good story about Dunkin'.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with Dunkin' when I was like in high school and college.
Their drinks or just...
No, donuts.
Okay.
I used to go get donuts. Donuts was like a comfort food for me for the longest time.
I know. I was going to say, like, you would bring donuts in like all the time, and I actually don't know the last time I've ever even seen you eat one.
Yeah, I really should bring them in just for everyone else. But because I don't have a drive to get them, I don't get them. So if I don't get anything, no one gets anything. That's how I work.
Do you not even crave it anymore?
I'm only charitable if it's me in some way.
It's me. Yeah, that's true. You kind of really did a whole lifestyle change.
Oh, it's been slowly happening over the years. As you get older and you realize that, like being in the health and fitness industry, going through all this stuff, you realize you start to actualize and realize all the effects different things have on your body. And the more you go, the more you pile the clean foods and the good foods and the simple foods on your plate, the less you want the other stuff. And just over time, it naturally just starts to dissipate to where you have less cravings for that kind of stuff. But with Dunkin', it's not really that good of a story, but I used to go hang out with my girlfriend at the time and be with her till like 2, 3 a.m. And then Dunkin' would be making the donuts.
At like 3 in the morning?
Yeah, so that's when they were making the donuts for people showing up at like 4:35 a.m. or whatever.
But you've just been up all night.
Yeah, so I cruise right over there and get like some Boston creams and French crullers that just came out of the thing. They were so good. I was eating those like 3 or 4 times a week. Yeah, 3 a.m., 4 a.m.
I didn't realize they were open that early.
Yep, that was the only thing open. The lights on the Dunkin', because I passed right by it on my way back to my house. Passed right by it. Yeah.
I wonder if they still are, if 2020 kind of changed that.
I know we talked about that earlier. A lot of people realized their expenses and where they could cut labor costs and where they could cut operating expenses. That whole time period taught a lot of business lessons about efficiency, in my opinion.
Yeah, because I used to go to like the store at like 2 in the morning. That is an interesting crowd.
What, the store?
Like at 2 in the morning.
Oh, like a grocery store?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That is...
Yeah, because you either get people going to work, people off work, or people like who have been out all night.
Like college students.
Yeah.
So
it's an interesting crowd.
I've never worked graveyards, and I don't think I'm built that way.
I did work some graveyards before. I've had a lot of little weird jobs throughout college and stuff. Well, then working as a door guy is basically like a graveyard shift. I get home at like 4 a.m.
Oh, I don't know how you do that.
Did that?
Yeah. Because
I don't do that anymore.
Well, you kind of did.
I wake up at 4:30, 5 o'clock now.
In 2020, you worked overnight, didn't you?
Oh, I did work a graveyard.
That's then. Right. Oh
yeah.
My gosh.
Yeah. So when everything first closed down here in Utah, and they still needed someone to be at the overnight at the facility, for security purposes. So I basically did like auditing overnight security from 10 to 6 a.m. or something, 7 a.m.
Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, I just sat at the desk and played video games on my computer.
Got
There was
paid.
no one there.
You got paid for it.
And got paid for it.
There was no one there at all.
No one. No one. There
So
was
you knew
a couple of people, and that was it.
you
Like,
knew nobody was gonna come up.
they didn't care. They literally, I said, like, they said, no one's going to be here, but we have to, in order to keep the doors open, have someone here. And I could have gone home because everyone ended up getting paid. So I could have just stayed home, but instead I sat up there and just did like little things, like picked some stuff up and checked on stuff and did security walks and make sure the doors were locked and stuff like that.
So you kind of recently did, yeah, I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah, I got used to it pretty quick.
How, 5 times a week?
Yeah, 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm. How does that not mess up your sleep?
It did, yeah. It totally changed my life for that period of time.
Because what, you go home and it's like 8 in
Yeah.
the morning, and then what, you sleep for like 8 hours?
Yeah, go to sleep and then get up, have dinner, which was breakfast, and then pack up my lunch and go into work. I was living off all Costco kind of pre-made stuff at that point too.
Props to you all. I don't think I could do that. Well, I guess you could. You do what you have to do. At the end of the day, you do what you have to do and you make it work.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, the human race is pretty resilient.
When it needs to be.
When you're kind of forced to be.
Yeah.
Graveyards also pay more too.
Usually. Because you can't find anyone who wants to do it. Because you have a totally different social structure in life.
Well, yeah, you're never seeing anybody in your life.
Pretty much.
Because you're either sleeping or working.
Yeah. When you come home, everyone's getting up and getting going. You say hi, goodbye. You go to bed. Probably more like 10 a.m. For me, it was probably 9:30, 10 a.m. by the time I laid down. Tried to close off all the windows and then wake up at 6.
Gosh. Then what do you do on your days off?
Your whole sleep cycle would be screwed, so you'd still kind of be in that mode. But I think I would stay up during the day and then just fall asleep like normal.
We're still like, even though I have been feeling really good, coming in here, I've realized like we're still just in an infant stage.
Yeah, we're definitely in the infancy. I can't wait to get some signage back up here. You guys should let us know what you think signage-wise. We're going to probably do like a neon sign for Millennial Spectrum and put it right up in the middle.
I think that's going to be...
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
I think so too.
I don't know. It's just like...
We need to get those soundproof tiles though. I think that gives a cool look too. It'll look edgy, kind of hip. Hopefully we're here for like no more than 2 years anyway.
And then we're moving on
to the big studio.
That's
Next thing though is the boom mics. These mics were expensive, by the way, but we should really go to the boom mics.
I have to see if we even have space in here. I don't know what kind
coffee table, small coffee table with 4 legs. We're going to spend the money and go away from the 3-legged. We're going to go to the 4-legged version. And we're going to connect boom mics to them.
Some of the things I say, I just wonder. Like even just like earlier, I was just like, oh, I was looking, but I couldn't find what the word was. And it wasn't table. It was like something else that I'm searching for. Because it's like, yes, table, but like not, it's a special table.
Okay. She was lacking the word to describe a small object next to a chair that you'd use to place stuff on. Whatever that. So if you know what word that is, please let us know.
A lot of it was TikTok lives, though, which I think is a different vibe. I do like this setup better. It's so much nicer than being like distracted. And then our energy level would shoot down when there was 0 people watching it, you know?
Yeah. It'd be like, no one's listening to you anyway. And no one's listening to us now, so it's ironic. We're just talking into our cell phones right now.
That's what everybody does, though.
Yeah.
I just think I was getting way too distracted. Like, you'd be talking to me and I'd be like looking at my phone.
I would like to have a thing with comments or do some live stuff because it'd be cool, but we'd have to set it up. We'd have to put a screen on that wall and have it. It'd be great if we could do a dual camera setup on a platform like TikTok or YouTube or whatever and have the comments up there and then just pick out the funny random ones.
Do you think we wouldn't get distracted looking at ourselves out there?
You would. Me, I would not. Her, it would be like... It'd be like a dolphin trainer over here.
It's just like we'd be right there.
Yeah.
How would you not just be looking at... I mean,
look, just like I'm doing. She's looking at the space of the thing that doesn't even exist right now. She's so distracted by the TV and the words that aren't even there. Just the idea of it has her distracted. Well,
I'm just grateful for the phones because I used to talk to you through the screen.
Yeah. That was the best. Like when we had the other phone set up where she could see my screen recording for these, and she would be looking at me on my screen of my phone. I was like, I'm right in front of you. And you're looking at the screen of the phone.
We've come a long way, but we've got a long way to go to.
Progression.
Control your circle.
Yeah.
We should end on that. We should end on talking about that circle thing.
Okay, the circle thing.
Yeah, the Zorro.
The Zorro circle. Yeah, so in the upside of happiness, correct? Happiness Advantage. I'm sorry.
There is the upside of happiness is another book, though.
Yeah. The Happiness Advantage. It's only about 200 pages, so it's a quick read.
Are you done yet?
No, I've been like highlighting and rereading and stuff. So I've taken. Usually I cook through books, but this one I've like been reading with intent.
We heard this book was going to be awesome, and it's probably my favorite book that we've read this year.
It was a social media pitch, but it was an effective one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
So the Zorro circle, you want to explain? Well, here, I'll explain. You haven't got to that part yet, have you? Oh, you did.
Like Cliff Notes version of
it. I love how she is like the most creative with replacing the word no with something. So she will give a 5-minute explanation that you can just replace the word no with. So in it talks about, it directly references Antonio Banderas' movies or whatever, and the training that he went through. And it talked about how he was able to best 10 men and learn all these things and dominate his environment and take advantage of his environment in these fights and this swashbuckling. But first he had to master this circle, and so he couldn't move from this circle. And so it was all about mastering his body awareness and his control over his body and staying within this circle. And everything that came at him, he had to stay within the circle. And that was all the training was about. And so the author uses that notion and says, like, this is how, basically like baby steps idea or this kind of deal, to when you're looking at something and you look at the totality of something, it seems daunting and overwhelming. Anything with any type of life change, whatever. But if you create this circle, this Zorro circle, that's what you focus on, then it starts to expand and impact the other areas, right? Because this becomes so solid as far as what it is. Like he gives an example of someone who's a cluttery person who's not very organized. Mm-hmm. And he had him start off by one small area of his desk. And eventually over the week, his whole desk became organized, and then his whole room, and then his email, and then he started to become more and more, it like radiated out the effect. And so it's kind of like this notion of radiating out the effect, becoming so solid as far as what you're doing and who you are with inside that circle that it impacts your environment.
Right. I think that's my problem, is I focus on 10 different things at once.
Right. Well, you're never going to be a swashbuckler that way.
But it is true where it's like, I do come to you and I'm like, I'm working on this, and this. And then in 2 days, I could probably still say I'm working on this, and this.
Right.
You know?
Well, that's why I'm always giving you do this now. What's the thing that you could do right now? Right?
Yeah.
And just knock that thing off. And it's like you have a list of 20 things, but 2 of which you could do immediately. And then when you do those 2 things, you're like, oh, I've got momentum. I feel better.
Because, it was really nice to just walk in here and the lights were already set up.
Kind of. They were kind of set up. Set up. Right? The first thing I did was move the lights.
That one can't stay there, though. It will get knocked down.
That's true. I think we're going to have to hang them from the walls.
I'm good with that.
We'll come up with some kind of rig for that. So that's the Zorro circle, in essence, is that concentrating on your home base, fixing a small area, a designated space, mastering that, and then allowing that to expand naturally. Work on your Zorro circle. For those of you who hung in this long, this has turned into another episode. We were just going to shoot some shorts, but it's going to turn into a nice little episode. So we'll put this out there. Thanks so much for hanging in this long. We're Millennial Spectrum. I'm Eric.
I almost said this is Emily.
And that is Emily. The real deal, Emil. And we appreciate you hanging in there. Like, subscribe, share. Try and help us out a little bit. We'd love it. And let us know what you think. Comments below, whether you didn't like this, that, or the other. We always try to respond to it. So, thanks.